Hi, so this will be a presentation on CBD in foods within the US, specifically between the different states. But I will approach other topics as listed in the index. First, I'm going to start with a brief overview of the 2018 Federal Farm Bill. As you may know, this bill provided for major changes regarding hemp on a national level, the most important ones being the scheduling of hemp, defining hemp nationwide by establishing a common THC limit requirement, which is 0.3%, and allowing for interstate hemp commerce in the US. The USDA published the final interim rule last year, further developing the regulatory framework. So why are the rules interim and what had to happen after they end in 2 years? The USDA published the interim rule as a tentative regulation to allow farmers to start with the crop season immediately. The USDA was to test how the rule works and implement changes accordingly after that 2-year period. So that's why it also requested comments from farmers on the matter. Some areas of the rule specifically asked for feedback, meaning that those parts of the law should be seen as the more tentative parts. So what issues are resolved by these rules that were outstanding in the Farm Bill? So there's, clarity that interstate hemp shipments are allowed, sampling and testing regime established using only DEA-approved labs, then a data sharing scheme and database enabling registration of producers, and a disposal scheme for non-compliant products. Now, what issues remain unanswered from these rules? So first, the regulatory environment for CBD extracts and end-user products is the blatant issue that remains unanswered. Then the process for testing of extracts and end-user products, the registration of extractors and manufacturers and compliance, labeling and packaging, and so on. And then the criminal issues for non-compliant products. So if a product is found to be over 0.3% THC, what happens? Now, for the status of the interim rule, the rule is currently in effect and it will expire on November 1st, 2021, or when a final rule is issued. So the USDA is meant to use those 2 years where the interim rule is effective to adjust this rule, if necessary, before finalizing. So a recent development is the change in the compliance deadline. States had to be operating under the interim final rule or have their state hemp plan approved by 31st of October 2020, so like now. But as per a measure recently passed by Congress, this deadline has now been extended to the 30th of September of 2021. So it's like almost an extra year. Now, since CBD extracts and end-user products are issues that remain unanswered by the USDA's interim final rule, how are they regulated on a federal level? And specifically, how are CBD in foods and dietary supplements regulated at both a federal level and at a state level? So far, the FDA has approved only one CBD product, which is a prescription drug product to treat 2 forms of epilepsy. As a result, the FDA has stated that it is currently illegal to market CBD by adding it to a food or labeling it as a dietary supplement. The reason behind it is that since CBD has been studied for drug uses, it can now not be marketed as food or dietary supplements. So this drug we're talking about is Epidiolex. In that sense, the FDA has taken enforcement action against food and dietary supplements that contain CBD only when those products were making some sort of drug-related claim, such as curing or treating diseases. Specifically, the FDA has warned companies for marketing unapproved cannabidiol products when they make unsubstantiated claims to treat cancer, Alzheimer's, opioid withdrawal, pain, and pet anxiety. So those are the only situations we've seen of FDA's enforcement. So since it does not seem that the federal stance is going to change anytime soon, or that they will actually enact regulations regarding CBD in food or dietary supplements, or that it's going to happen anytime soon, really, many states have taken action to regulate those products as they see fit. In that sense, many states are enacting non-ambiguous regulation, allowing the use of CBD in foods or dietary supplements, which is, the complete opposite stance than the one taken on a federal level. So nearly half of the states allow it, and even large states at that, while some other states have been trying to legalize it as well. So since there is no uniformity, we can see a wide range of variety in regulating CBD in food. Among the most populated states, we can find Florida or Texas explicitly allowing those products. There are, of course, some restrictions or rather regulations. So while Florida requires any establishment that manufactures, processes, or sells food containing hemp extracts, since it will be considered a hemp food establishment, and it will be required to have a food permit to operate in Florida according to Florida law. Texas, for example, requires the products to be properly tested, packaged, labeled, while also having to obtain the proper license, the consumable hemp product license prior to operation. Now, other states, we can see other states, of course, explicitly allowing those products, such as, Colorado, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, and we can find some interesting regulations in Utah, for example, in several states, but let's say Utah requires CBD products to carry QR codes. So those QR codes are meant to provide information on the purity. So Texas and Indiana, for example, have similar regulations in that sense. So that's interesting. On the other hand, we can also see states that follow the FDA's position, the FDA stance, prohibiting the use of CBD in food and dietary supplements. So in New York, no food or beverage product may be made or sold in the state if it contains CBD as a food additive or an ingredient. Food or beverage products that are found by the inspectors, in either their facilities or in the marketplace, those products will be considered adulterated, so they will face enforcement. They're very clear about that. However, while the New York Department of Agriculture does not allow the addition of CBD to food and beverages, it does allow the manufacture and sale of CBD as a dietary supplement. Because, it's kind of an interesting plot twist there. California is one of those states also that specifically states that until the FDA rules that industrial and derived CBD oil and CBD products can be used as a food, or until California makes a determination that those products are safe for human consumption, CBD products are not an approved food ingredient, food additive, or dietary supplement. So like nothing. It was in California as well where there was a bill that would have legalized foods, beverages, and cosmetics, but it did not pass due to the legislative session ending. But so there have been some efforts in that state to actually legalize the situation. For now, though, CBD in food remains illegal in California. So with this, we have seen two sides of the same coin. So either you can find, we have seen a complete ban, clearly stating that it is prohibited, or states that actually allow it explicitly as well. However, there are many states that also fall in the middle. So some of them stay silent as to the legality of the product. They don't refer or mention it whatsoever. So we can find in some of those states, some of these products are in the market. So while it shouldn't be seen as the situation being legal, we can assume that there is no will to enforce against those products, at least at the moment in those states. Other states that fall within the middle, which do not clearly state that CBD is prohibited in food, we can see that they actually state that they do follow the FDA's stance in a general manner. So those states should be seen as a little bit more tricky. There's a strong chance one could be facing enforcement there. Finally, it's worth noting that on a local level, counties and cities are also drafting their own regulations regarding the sale and manufacture of these products, further complicating the regulatory landscape. New York City, for instance, imposed a ban on CBD in food, which was effective July of 2019, so like last year. Now, what does this mean? What does this create? What this creates is quite a difficult situation for manufacturers or sellers of these products that want to operate in more than just one jurisdiction. Because if you just want to operate in one jurisdiction, then you just follow the jurisdiction's specific regulation. Make sure you don't make any such claim that the FDA may suspect you're making a drug-related claim. Because, those are the scenarios that we've seen so far that the FDA actually acts upon. And then you're fine. You're fine. Now here comes the potential problem. If you want to operate in two or more different jurisdictions, there might be a conflict of laws. So when it comes to interstate commerce, your best bet is to choose jurisdictions that have very similar regulations, because then you may just comply with the regulation of both states and you should be okay. So for starters, if you're operating in a state where CBD in food is legal, well, then you cannot enter another market where it is prohibited. So that's the most obvious case scenario. For actual complicated situations, those may ensue if you want to operate in two states with regulations such as, let's take New York and Utah. So let's say you're based in New York, right? And in New York, certain foods and beverages are prohibited, period. However, you may manufacture and sell CBD as a dietary supplement in New York, as long as you follow all of the legal requirements. So now you want to enter the Utah market as well, right? So in Utah, the packaging of your product has to include a QR code providing information on the purity of the product. And also in Utah, you may legally sell CBD in food as long as as it's in a medicinal dosage form, which such as, sublingual preparation, or lozenge, and some other forms specified in the law. Plus, of course, being registered with the Utah Department of Agriculture and Food. So what now? What now? If you're based in New York, you cannot add CBD in foods and beverages. You may only do so in dietary supplements. Additionally, you'll have to add the QR code if you want to be entering the Utah market. Plus all other requirements, they're applicable in Utah. So if you take all of the requirements in consideration, it does not seem like the best scenario to put yourself into. This does not mean that you cannot not operate in more than two states. You can do that, of course, but rather, to be smart about it. Because there might be combos like this one uh, between New York and Utah, which are just a waste of resources and money at the end of the day. So it would be best if you're based in Utah, for example, and you want to operate in another state, to choose another state that also requires a QR code, such as Texas, for example. So, to finish this presentation, some key takeaways. To summarize it all, um, we've seen the conflict between federal law and state law. We know that at the federal level, uh, not only did not the Farm Bill address CBD, which was expected, but also the USDA in its interim rule, it didn't really tackle what to do with CBD end user products. So we find a little bit of a legal gray area um, in that sense, that the states and local jurisdictions try to pick up the slack from. So what does this mean? This means obviously that companies that wish to manufacture or sell CBD in food products, it's not just prohibited because at the federal level the FDA said that, but rather they should research in which jurisdictions it is actually allowed, and not just that, but also in which jurisdictions they can find the best regulatory framework for their product. Because since there is no uniformity at a federal level or any guidelines as to how to regulate this product other than prohibition, um, well, obviously at a state and local level, we can find wide variety of differences in regulation. And as mentioned, if wanting to operate in more than one jurisdiction, it would also be smart to try and find jurisdictions that are similar, so not to waste any resources or money or time or any such thing. Um, and that should do it. So I hope you like the presentation, and you'll find in the next slide some possibilities of contacting us, and have a good day.
My name is Priscilla Gonsilio. I am the president of CBDIA, the Cannabinoid Industry Association.
I'm Len May. I am the CEO and co-founder of EndoCanna Health. Super grateful to have the opportunity to speak to all of you about the future of hemp and CBD as a wellness and therapeutic product. We believe in education, research, and validation, not just through science, but through personalization. So think about it this way, 33% of consumers have purchased a CBD product. 62% have heard of CBD. It's not bad. Thinking that this is a prohibited, unregulated substance that is still illegal in many parts of the world. And we're talking about cannabidiol, which is a cannabinoid found in the cannabis plant. So 92% of consumers do not know if CBD products are even federally regulated. Do you? Well, some believe that CBD is just another name of marijuana. And 51% believe that CBD is intoxicating. Is it intoxicating? Well, it is psychoactive, but it's not necessarily intoxicating. And it does work as an adverse agonist of THC. When some people say, I consume too much THC, perhaps CBD may be a solution. And 66% believe that all CBD products are safe. Well, there's over 500,000 people that die of acetaminophen every single year. There's no such thing as everything is safe. Sugar, caffeine, but you have to know what's right for you.
I've been in the cannabis and hemp space for the last 15 years. I'm co-founder of the Original Breeders League, an award-winning cannabis genetics farm. At our farm, we breed both cannabis and CBD cultivars for various climates and regions throughout the world, and for different purposes such as fiber, cannabinoids, terpenes, and oil production. Throughout that process, it was also sometimes necessary to assist with educating the market and government agencies to advise on legislation, policy reform, and industry development. Since the early 20th century, the use of cannabis was rejected by the Western culture at large. In the United States, a wave of regulations made access to cannabis much more difficult starting from the late 1900s, which ultimately led to the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937 that made effectively cannabis use a federal crime. Meanwhile, prohibition in Canada lasted for 85 years until being lifted by recent changes in the law. The cannabis plant, however, has a much deeper history than that. The cannabis plant has been widely regarded for its therapeutic potential for many millennia by different cultures worldwide. This information comes to us from MedRelief. It focuses on the medical uses of cannabis discovered by many cultures over time, with applications dating back to ancient empires such as Rome, Egypt, and China.